Coach Goodale, really appreciate you sitting down and talking with me. As always, we love to chop it up. And I saw you a couple of weeks ago at Elite Eight, and you're looking to add some Scarlet Knights to the crew, and you were looking at a lot of the new recruits and some of the guys that you felt would be good for your lineup. But before we even get into the wrestlers, whether it's recruits or new additions, I want to talk about your coaching staff. Obviously, there's been some changes, and when I saw you, you were with the new addition and Mikey Labriola, and now you've
Yeah.
got a couple of guys from my neck of the woods of the Lehigh Valley on staff with you, with him and Middich. Talk about that a little bit. What was it about Mikey that made you want to add him to the staff? And who were some of the other guys? Maybe not who were some of the other guys, but what was it really about Mikey that kind of put him above the rest?
Yeah. First, it's great to be with you as always. Love talking with you. Great seeing you down in Georgia. What an event, too. Just a great
Yeah.
tournament, really cool tournament to recruit. So, Elite Duels does it right. So, anyway, I went to the Lehigh Valley again, right? Went to your neck of the woods. I knew that would make you happy.
Got to get those guys, right?
You do for sure. And that's Mikey, somebody I was after for a long time as an athlete when he was at Becca. Spent a lot of time in that room, recruited a bunch of those guys. Coach Karam, just loved that whole program. And
Mhm.
obviously they were winning, doing their thing. And so got to know him a little bit. Then he goes on to Nebraska and just a huge fan of the way he competed. Really liked that whole program and the way they compete so darn hard. Uh, Stayed in touch with him. He came back home and just something I think we needed, from an upperweight standpoint, somebody who still wants to compete and wrestle. Now he's throwing his hat in this whole coaching ring, and I think he's going to be a star in this game. And that's just kind of the way it happened. And with Donnie leaving, very, very difficult to replace. Obviously, it was time for Donnie, right? He was going to be a head coach. It was a matter of where and when, and just a great thing for him to move on and take over his own program. Um, and just this was the guy I courted, and maybe before Mikey, even Brian Snyder, somebody else in the Valley, somebody I went after pretty hard and to fill Donnie's role. So that didn't work, but we were still going to try to get Mikey, and he's been great, man. He's been great. He's very eager to learn this profession, very eager to recruit, fundraise, sell tickets, really to do whatever you want. I mean, he's in there 3 times a day doing individual workouts. Something we just really, really needed desperately, especially the weight class.
Yeah, and we saw a video, I think, of Mikey in the room and coaching the guys, and it looks like he's taking to it very easily. And is that something that you saw naturally with him? As soon as he came into the room, the guys took to him, or was there a little bit of a feeling out process, and then he's like, "All right, now I'm ready to go."
Yeah, I don't know how much of a feeling out. Once he decided this is where I'm going to be, it was all in, and he wants to train, he wants to compete, he wants to scrap, he wants to drill, he wants to learn. So that immediately, the guys hanging around the office, they're going to hang around him, and there's a relationship building that's awesome. And again, just a hard day's work, and that's ever since he decided to do this, he's all in on it, and that's what's been exciting. So. Uh, yeah, I mean, he's got a great personality and just eyes wide open, ears open to this whole profession. So I'm excited to see. I'd love to go ahead 15 years, see where he's going to be at. And but I think he's into this, and it'll be good. It's something new. It's something new for our program, and maybe we needed a little bit of that, and we were forced to do that right with Donnie leaving. So maybe it's a good thing, and I'm hoping it is a good thing. So far, it's been great.
Yeah. And then, in the offseason, you also had Sebastian Rivera that was in the room that was training. And, what would you say that type of impact of having a guy that is training for the pinnacle of the sport? How did
Yeah.
that impact the team and how they saw him work and how they saw him going after, like I said, the top of the top when it came to achieving his goals in wrestling?
I just think a locked in focus, and this goes back even before the Olympic Games, the year before prior, the World Championships, and even the year before that, taking fifth in the worlds. He's been in so many major competitions. So what it takes at that level, day in and day out, how you're living, how you're preparing, and how you go about your business is just if I'm a sponge of the sport and I'm a young guy, and as you know, I'm sure we'll get into the young guys we brought in, and even some of the younger guys that have been with us a couple years, to see that day in and day out at the highest level, not the collegiate level, not the high school level, but the highest level, is something really, really special. And even as a coach, his coach. Uh, it's just cool to see. It's great to see, and you just know when he's dialed in what can happen, and that's kind of what, as a coach, you're trying to get across to your athletes every day. For years, I've tried to get that across, but when you have somebody go and do it, and listen, we've been very, very fortunate to have guys like Ashnault do it at a high level and Suriano do it at a high level. Even when we had Downey and Graff, they made the world teams in 2019. So, but Sebastian, the Olympic Games, how he went about his business, used our guys. Alex Nini went with him overseas to the games and was his training partner. So to be around that made him so much better. But anytime you get that in your room, you got a chance, and then you want to win. That's what you need to do. And they got to see it live every single day.
Yeah. So getting into your lineup, you returned a good number of guys, including the two guys that made it onto the podium last year. Speaking of those two specifically, how have you seen them now that they have basically a taste of it, right? They know what they need to do, and when you get to the NCAA tournament, it's a game of inches, right? It's that one more thing, maybe that one more shot or something like that. Now that those two All-Americans have brought back, some hardware, how have you seen their mentality change? How have you seen them work differently as they approach this next season?
I think for both, just totally not satisfied with
Mhm.
where they finished. They're fortunate to win their last match at the national tournament. So 2/7. Obviously, Dylan's a Big Ten champ. With that comes responsibilities. With that comes a lot more attention. With that comes, especially in this state, people want pulling at him all the time. So I thought he did a really, really good job of honing in on what needs to be done to get better. Certainly not satisfied, both of them, including Yara. Uh, Went about it couple different ways. Yara, believe it or not, spent the last 3 weeks of Petra Savilic, and I'm not saying that right, the Olympic champ at heavyweight.
Yeah.
Yara spent the last 3 weeks of his training camp with him,
Okay.
getting him prepared for the Olympic Games. Not many people know that. Uh, but yeah, so that was a great camp, obviously, for him. He went and won an Olympic gold, but Yara was part of that. So put a lot of time in over the summer to work on his craft and get better. There's expectations there, of course, but no more than they're putting on themselves. These are two guys that believe they can win titles and would really like to do that. We know there's a lot more that goes into it. Like you said, it's a game of inches, and we have to be better at that tournament. Both of them have to be better. And I think our team as a whole, that's something we've talked about quite a bit during preseason, is taking the next step. We do return, believe it or not, I think we have 12 national
Hmm.
qualifiers, guys who have won matches at the national tournament. Obviously, it was only 10 weight classes. So we have a lot of experience back. We have a good mixture of youth coming in that you'll see guys wrestle. There's a lot of experience there. But for our program, Yara and Dylan need to take the next step. Former All-Americans, Poznansky, Turley, need to take another step. And they're super close, but there has to be another step taken if we're going to do it as a program. And that's it's kind of been the focus of the preseason, and we've talked about it quite a bit. We don't hide from the expectation of where we want to go, so we talk about it quite a bit.
Yeah, and you mentioned Turley, Poznansky. Both those guys were All-Americans a couple of years ago and haven't been able to make it back onto the podium. What kind of conversations have you had with those guys who know what it takes to make it onto the podium and haven't been able to get back?
Those are some of the things, like you said, it's a fine line. I mean, holy heck, pauses in overtime against Buchanan, now the number one kid in the country. Just hook his leg and you're an All-American, right? So it's this close, and that's in overtime. So Jackson Turley can beat, he takes fourth at the Big Tens. He can beat all the best guys in the country. It's putting it together those last 3 days of March. So those are some of the conversations. It hasn't been really hard. Jackson came back for one reason and one reason only. It's clearly to wrestle, and because of the bad taste he has in his mouth. It's that tournament, and Paz wants to get back there. So, and then we have guys that are certainly capable and come in with a lot of accolades that are super close. Round of 12 guys, Dean Peterson, um, and Brian Soldano. They need to make another jump, and it's important for them. And if they do that, we're going to be all right. But I think that those are the conversations we're definitely having. And like you said, there's a fine line. You got to do every little thing right, and then you just got to execute when the time comes.
Yeah, for Paz, I mean, you mentioned his last match with Buchanan. I went back and I looked at his results from last year. There's one outlier where he gets majored 14-4, but all the rest of his matches are within a takedown, right? And that's got to be something where you're looking and you're like, okay, what are these things that I need to be changing? I have to be attacking, I have to be getting there. How have you seen his mindset change as he's coming back into this year? Like I said, after having such close matches, I think there was three of them that went to either sudden victory or tiebreaker. The one with Buchanan being the one going to tiebreaker. And then, like I said, the outlier where he was majored 14-4, but the rest are within that margin, right? They're within that one takedown. I think it's like there's two matches where he loses by three, another two where he loses by one, and another one he's losing by two. How have you seen his mindset change where he knows he's in these matches and he knows the things that he needs to fix? How have you seen him change and what kind of work has he been putting in?
Yeah, you never really can tell until we start competing and he's in
Mhm.
the fire, and he'll be in the fire early with our schedule, which is great. But I think what I've seen over the summer and the preseason is I don't want to say forced, but that's kind of a forced leadership role. A forced, now you are the guy. Like, you need to kind of take this team and run with it a little bit and lead a little bit more. And then just by him coaching, he coaches club teams all over. He's involved more. So he's preaching these things. Well, if you're going to preach them, then you need to the same way, scoring points, scoring points, scoring points, tough time, right? 30 seconds left in matches. I need to get one. Those are some of the things he has to get better at, or we'll be on the same end of those. And that's been the message really to the whole program. We as a program are tired of being 14th in the country,
Mhm.
are tired of having two All-Americans, 8 qualifiers, winning a lot of dual meets, and being a top 20 team at the national tournament. It's the same thing over and over and over. So how do we go about changing that? Same conversations we're having with John Paz. How do we go about winning those 2 point matches, 1 point matches instead of losing them? That's just tough time. That's putting yourself through hell in the middle of a practice when you're hurt and going with the best guys, not going with a coach who it's okay to lose to. Challenging Mikey Labriola every single day. Challenge yourself to beat him, not to because he's your coach, it's okay. Beat him. And that's kind of where he needs to get to. And that changes your mindset a little bit. So just doing those things subtly and a forced leadership role, I think have helped him quite a bit.
Yeah. Another guy you mentioned is Peterson. And throughout last year, I'd be doing commentary or writing an article or something. I'd get a text from Middich, who I know works with Dean Peterson a ton. And 125 was a weight class that was very open last year, right? There were the number one guy couldn't hold that ranking to save his life. And that's when I would get those text messages from Middich where he's like, it's Dean, it's Peterson. He's the guy. He's coming. He's coming. And he's back this year. He placed very highly at Big Tens, which is a meat grinder, absolutely.
Mhm.
But how have you seen him change as well? And especially in a weight class where, like I said, no one really held the crown until the final match where Richie Figueroa was on the top of the podium.
Yes.
No
Yeah.
one knew who was going to win that. So in such an open weight class, how has Dean positioned himself to be the guy that emerges?
Yeah. Again, I won't know until we get in this, but I will tell you this. He may be our best athlete when it comes to wrestling. He trains super hard. And I think that's what we're missing.
Mhm.
You can't train that hard and not translate it to the match. It's just, you're doing yourself a disservice. And that's open dialogue we have. And he knows it and he gets it. So it's succumbing to the outcome, which, Holmes, in this sport is hard to do, right? Everybody wants to get their hand raised. I get all the coach talk. Don't worry about the outcome, worry about the process. That's sounds so nice. It's BS, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to win,
Yeah.
right? You want to win, but there's some truth to it. We got to get Dean. He kills it in that practice room. I mean, 100 miles an hour. He's gotten Aiden Smith better just by training with him. Aiden's helping him quite a bit. He's finally got a lighter guy he can go with. But then he'll have a match with Shawver, and it's two really really good guys, and it's 1-1. So how do we as a coaching staff get him over that hump? Started doing it at the end. Big Tens. He beats Ramos. He's in a great match with McKee. And loses in overtime, right? So, how do we get him to score and keep scoring and keep scoring? And that's our job. That's the staff's job because the tools are there. I think he was actually ranked number one part of the year for at least a week, and then he lost. But he's so capable and so athletic, and there's so much talent there. Our staff needs to get it out of him come match day.
Yeah.
Not just the practice room because he's incredible in the practice room. It's
Mhm.
got to be match day, and that's what you look for. When you're watching Peterson throughout the course of the year, is he scoring? Is he scoring, or is he okay being 3-2? And you'll know where he's at, but that's our job is to get that out of him.
Yeah. And you're going to see some, I guess, not new faces, but maybe some guys that are back in the lineup that were there last year. I know Clark coming off an injury. You have Oliveri, who's also that can be back in the lineup after not being there last year. What does the middle of your lineup really look like? Obviously we've talked about the guys in the top end and the bottom half. What does the middle of your lineup look like going into this
And
year?
great question, because I think we got three really good 141 pounders who I wouldn't mind sending out. I mean, there's so much talent there. Fungaro, Max Herms from Ohio, and of course Oliveri, who's an NCAA qualifier, all back at the same weight. And now Clark drops to 49 with Chetta, who's won 2 matches at nationals last year. So we have two, and Alex Nini is an incredible freshman right now who spent the summer with Sebastian. So three really good guys at 49. Obviously, Nini can redshirt. So we have some depth there. It's super competitive there, which is great. We haven't had that in a long, long time. I do think you'll see Nini throughout the course of the year. He'll use those 5 dates at some point. And then 57, you probably get into some of our freshmen. Barbosa's really good. Connor Hare special. We got to get Dylan Weaver to push those guys and be a part of this thing and make a jump there and certainly push. But that's kind of where we're at. With those two freshmen are going to wrestle. Again, you try to save one of them in a red shirt. Right now, if I had to make a decision, what's it, October 15th right now?
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably say Hare would start for us at the weight, and we'll redshirt Barbosa. And then who knows what we're going to do at 65. There's 3 or 4 guys there, but we need to win at that weight class.
Yeah.
So we got to kind of figure that out. Tony White, national qualifier, comes back. Luke Gayer's a California kid, has an opportunity to get in this lineup. And then Al DeSantis will move up. So a lot of guys there. I think the 2 freshmen will probably be 57, and you could even see Barbosa at 65 if he's able to wrestle at that weight. But I don't know if we'll wrestle him right away. I think the 5-match limit and a red shirt, but you'll definitely see Barbosa throughout the course of the year.
Yeah. And looking at your schedule, you went to the Lehigh Valley to get some coaches. You're starting in the Lehigh Valley. You
Yeah.
got Duke and you got F&M. Why did you guys want to go and start out your season with back-to-back dual meets and just kind of get right into the fire?
Yeah, well, I think we're taking the first week, and we'll have a bunch of guys go to the Princeton Open, but from a dual meet standpoint, gives us another week to train. It's already a long, long season, so at least we'll start November 9th with 2 duels, and I think our feet have been to the fire all summer long and all because of what we have coming up, right? I think if you circle it, you look at NC State, you look at Virginia Tech. I always like to put some hammers early. Obviously, we wrestled Virginia Tech last year at our place. But to go on the road and wrestle those 2 teams, really, really good from a training standpoint, from a preseason standpoint. There's something looming large. We can't just ease our way into the season because of what we have. As dual meets are important to me. I want to win those matches, and NC State, Virginia Tech are really good. But love going to the Lehigh Valley. Obviously, we're recruiting there. We got coaches from there. We're spending a lot of time there. It's fitting that we open our season there, but I think, just going back, feet to the fire the week after NC State and then Virginia Tech on the road is really good to make sure our preparation is good, and we're going to get after it in November. So we'll be ready in November.
Yeah, you guys have a strong out of conference season. Like you said, you have NC State, you have Virginia Tech, but you also have the grinder of the Big Ten. And
Yes.
as you said, you're going to see some young guys that are getting into the lineup. How do you prepare them for that grind of the Big Ten? And what do you want to see from them in order to know that they are ready for what is coming in the conference?
I think it's really important, and I know this is boring talk, coach talk, but I just think it's really important. It's match by match.
Mhm.
Wherever you're feeling that day, that match, that's the most important thing. And then going along those lines, it's listen, and we talk about this. There's a lot of dialogue, and this is part of the recruiting process. You're in this conference, you're going to lose. We're not, the days of the undefeated. That's probably not going to happen much. But these guys, these young guys are prepared, right? They're coming in, they've wrestled a ton. They seem to like they're getting better and better. Their time is now. You're expected to win. But how do you handle losses? You're not going to be an undefeated kid, and that's okay. as long as there's progress, as long as we're getting better. How is your mindset after a loss? The best guys in the country are able to bounce back. The best guys in the country are able to take a bad match next time out. It turns into a good one. That's learning. That's a process. That's something that with the staff, there's a lot of dialogue. We got to be great there, but just understanding, like you said, it's a grind. It's usually Friday, Sunday, right? It's a strong out of conference. Next man up, next time up. You got to be great the next time, and talk about that a lot. There's dialogue that goes with that, and I just think there's a process to it, and it's not just you're going to come here and win for everybody. Yeah, I'm going to win a national title. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that, and I think that's why we do the schedule the way we do it. We have some important events leading up to it that are really important to the program and to you from an individual standpoint. But how do you bounce back from losses and handle it is very, very important.
Yeah. And you talked about how important dual meets are during the season. And we've obviously heard a number of coaches talk about, like, let's get a dual meet championship, let's get something out there. But you guys do dual meets a little bit differently at Jersey Mike's. That place gets filled up. I've been in that arena. It gets loud. You've got, your most honorable fans. How would you characterize the atmosphere at Jersey Mike's, and how would you like to see that start to carry over to some other programs? If you could tell other programs how to build that camaraderie to get that into their stadium, what would you tell them?
Yeah, this may sound crazy, but it's the most important job as a coach. There's some programs that don't have to do anything, right? You think about Penn State, Iowa, Ohio State, Oklahoma State. They don't have to do anything. People are going to show up, and they've been doing it for years. Lehigh, there's a ton of tradition. They're going to show up. It is our job as a coach. It's the number one job. It might be more important than recruiting. If that sounds crazy, right? But what that fan base does, it recruits itself. It recruits, it's the number one thing we use in recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
But it is our job every single day. We'll finish this interview, and our staff sitting out there now, we'll each call 4 or 5 coaches and get their teams to our matches. You must build the fan base if this thing is going to last. There's a reason why Rutgers wrestling is at the forefront of revenue share, scholarships, and not going the different direction. It's because when we wrestle in that arena right behind me, it's important that it's packed. And if it's not 6,000, it's an awful night. And when a big team comes in, it better be 8,000 or we didn't do our job. And that's just the way we go about our business and the way we think and our thought process. It's important every single day of our job. July 4th, you better be selling season tickets. Christmas Day, you better be selling season tickets. Easter break, you need to be selling season tickets. And that's the coach's job. That's the staff's job. And if you're not doing that, some bad things are going to happen. So bad things can happen anyway with an Olympic sport. We all know that. We've seen that, right? So you need to be on the forefront of it, and you need to put your athletic director on the forefront of it. Make sure he's doing his part as well. So it's just something we've always believed in here, something we do. And if you do that, recruiting will sell itself, and that'll help. So
Yeah.
that's the way we go
So,
about it.
so you also mentioned about, those 5 dates that
Mhm.
the freshmen get. And, I know the NCAA is going to be looking at expanding that to other sports. I think football and wrestling were the first 2 sports that were able to have freshmen play in 5 dates and still redshirt or anything else like that. How would you say that's helped in wrestling, where your guys are able to develop? They're able to get thrown into the fire and see what it's like being in a hardcore Division I match or being in a tournament. How would you say that's helped your young guys develop over these years where that rule has been in place?
Yeah, I think it's great because you get to see, how a kid goes about his business and the difference between high school and college and how you prepare, how you match day prepare leading up to it and your whole week leading up to it. You get to see all that stuff. And then you get to implement your nutrition and your sleep habits. And it's the biggest jump I think freshmen have is being able to go from high school to college is everything else that goes in it. You're always going to work hard. You're always going to learn new techniques, but there's so much more. And listen, we mentioned a bunch of our freshmen that are really, really good. You never know how they're going to react in a certain setting. You're never going to know how they're going to react in front of 6,000 at Jersey Mike's Arena. So you use those dates to see where they're at and how they handle it. And listen, we've had some that have done it with flying colors and been great. And we have some that were like, whoa, I might not be ready for this and I need a red shirt. So again, a lot of dialogue, but I think that's why that's in place. I think it's great. And there's a little bit difference between going to an open tournament as a freshman and still using your red shirt than, like I said, the week leading up, the day before a duel, and a big duel. I'm not talking a neutral site duel where you're just getting 3 duels. I'm talking a big duel, a Big Ten duel, a TV, a national TV audience, how you handle that. So those are some of the things we talk about with our young guys, and you kind of see how they're prepared. And then if they're not prepared, you have that luxury of saying, you know what, let's go with the older guy and go from there and give this guy a chance to develop.
Yeah. So, Coach, I appreciate you sitting down and talking with me about your guys in the season. And to wrap up, what can we expect from Rutgers this year?
Listen, like you said, it's a good team. It could be a really good team. It's up to these guys to do that. The national tournament is in Philly. Anytime that happens, it gets on the East Coast. There's more to it. There's more fire. There's more juice. There's more expectation. There's more of our crowd at the national tournament, which is awesome. This could be a special year. I'm not sitting here saying we should do this, we should do that, but there's definitely expectations and something that we don't shy away from. It's something we talked about for us. The big thing to look for: can we take the next step? Can we take the next step, or is it going to be the same old ranked 14th, 2 All-Americans, 8 qualifiers, heck of a dual meet season, won some, lost some. So for us, it's taking the next step.
That's awesome, Coach. Well, I appreciate it again, and I'm gonna be looking out for you guys, and happy to see you adding some Lehigh Valley flavor to the staff, and hopefully you can add some more Lehigh Valley flavor to the room. I know you got one kid in the room right now from the Valley, so hopefully you can continue to recruit heavily in my area. But as always, I appreciate it and look forward to seeing you this season.
I appreciate you, man, always.